Hi everybody, back again. Hope you enjoyed a good weekend, and we're back at it. This is our last week of material, if you can believe that. The test will be on Thursday, news quiz on Friday, and then our final, the last day of school. Alice Cooper, I hear him singing "School's Out" on the 22nd. Your test will be that period 7-8. Or 1 and 2, I guess. You know what I mean? It'll be the last two of the year, so it'll be 2-1. Anyway, if you remember, we left off with any questions before we start. I don't hear any. Usually Kitty has some complaints or criticisms, but as you can see, he's skipping today. He basically is outside hunting. You know, some people go fishing, he goes hunting. Rodent hunting is his specialty. At that, we left off with feudalism, and I left it on here just for today. Feudalism is that period in the Dark or Middle Ages when we start to see the manor, the estate, the key. Land is the key in the feudal ages. Remember the dates I gave you. The Middle Ages stems of wide breadth, about 1,000 years, from 500 to 1500 AD. We are moving into this Middle Age toward the High Middle Ages. Look at the dates I put. If you remember, we ended the Vikings run about 1000 AD. We're moving into this time period of 300. This is critical. Look at this date. We're getting closer, folks, to, you guessed it, CC as I call them. We're on a first name basis. 1492, right? We're getting closer. And in a time span that we can actually relate to. Okay, what we start to see during this 300-year timetable, we see increased food production. If you remember with the Vikings unit, we talked about not needing to raid as much. One of the reasons was because of increased food production. There was a global warming. Increased food, people can eat, people can now start to expand population, which we'll get to. Another reason for this not only was climatic change, but we see the use, advent if you will, of a horse versus an oxen. The ox was used for thousands of years in food production. If we know anything about an ox, you've heard people say, oh, that person's slower than an ox, okay? An ox is a very cumbersome kind of bloopity-bloop animal where a horse is giddy up, okay? We start to see the speed increased, and horses are actually easier to domesticate in terms of keeping them in corrals, that type of thing. Oxen are very strong animals and serve the purpose, but now we're going to see the use of the horse that can be utilized multiple ways, not only in food production, but with, remember last time, who uses horses? Not the cavalry. What do I hear? Trinity, was that you? Go ahead, say it, Trinity. Knights, perfect, very good. So we see the horse. Better plow. They actually now created in blacksmithing a better chisel type plow that can unearth that virgin soil. So now we can cut timber down. We're starting to see Europe utilize their forests, and we start to see more of agriculture take place. 80% of the wood forest land is going to be decimated in Europe during primarily this time period. We also see a harness you develop. Now you're going a harness. That goes back to the horse. Rather, it was people early on used the same yoke for an oxen. They put it on a horse and it suffocates the horse. They developed a different type harness that could surround the conformation of a horse. And that's why all of these things led to an increase in food production. We're going to see increased population. One of the most significant, and remember the Romans didn't know about this, is crop rotation. Okay? We start to see, if we have 2-piece plots, here I'll make that one a little bigger for you. There we go. If we have, let's say, 100 acres here, and we grow one crop in that 100 acres, ultimately it's going to deplete the soil. So we learned to split it with different crops, and let's say 100 acres, 50-50. What they decided to do in the late Middle Ages is to actually go to 3 fields of that 100, 33, 33, rotate, and leave one as fallow or non-planted and let it replenish itself. So they're starting to see what modern farm production is with crop rotation that we utilize today. And that, of course, all leads to increased food production. As a result, what's going to happen? You got it. The population's going to go up. Now, guys, when we're talking about history here, you know I get jacked about certain things. I can still hear Alex, a she-wolf. But this is a figure that astounds even the jaded historian like myself. The population in the Middle Ages, in the modern Europe world, the known world, in a 150-year period, 150 years, that's just a generation and a half, it increased 40%. Imagine if the world in 150 years, 40%, we now see approximately 42 million people that we guesstimate on the planet. In today's terminology, that's not that great. That's like 42 Montanas. But the key here is this population booming in this 150-year period. I want you to look up at this date again. What are we going to see in the 1300s, the 14th century, that's going to decimate that population? More people living closer, more people. All of a sudden, what can really rake that increase? Disease. But we're not there yet. We're getting to it. Okay? That's going to lower this significantly. But right now, we had a huge population increase. And what type of people are starting to emerge? Townspeople. We're going to see a shift from this feudal period of land. Obviously, now with the increased food, they're making more food. They have to go where? To the markets. We've seen this throughout history. We see it even today. We need to go to the markets. And we see a new middle class emerge, which we're going to be talking about in just a second. Right now, it's our ungoogled question of the day. If you remember, the last one was the baleen whale. This one, I'm going to have you gander over here and look at this fella right here. Look at the paws on this critter. Look at the paws. Whoa, oh. Look at the paws here. Okay, huge. They're almost like what? Shall we say snowshoes? Like I have right there. Snowshoes on the snow. Anybody know what type of critter that is? That you do not see very often. Oh, I see several hands up. Oh, awesome. Awesome. On three. Ready? Everybody say it. 1, 2, 3. No. A lynx. It is a lynx. I acquired that in northern Alaska on the Brooks Range slope, if you're at all curious. Anyway, so what animal has the big pads that I showed you? The answer would be a lynx. L-Y-N-X. Okay? Lynx. All right, that's number 2, second lecture of this unit, lynx. All right, let's go back then to these townspeople. We have a name for them. Some of you are in French class. Good for you, because you know my French. Like when we talk about the president of France, who? Aiden? Yep, who is it? You said what? Macron? No! It's, if you remember, it's Macron. Okay? Here, these townspeople are called, primarily in France now, Charlemagne's turf, the bourgeoisie. Now, you French folk know how to pronounce that better than I do, but we'll just go with the bourgeoisie. Okay, that means this new middle class in the Middle Ages. The bourgeoisie. Okay, this will be on a test. A lot of vowels, spelt the best that you can, obviously. Okay, who else do we see emerging in these cities? We see Jews. We haven't talked about the Jews. Last time we did, they were kicked out of their homes, on their lands, taken over by the Muslims. The Islamic people moving into those territories. They're dispersed. They can't own land. They can't farm anymore. They're originally farmers. Now we see them as moneylenders. They become the bankers in this society. And that is why through centuries, the Jews have been primarily in the banking industry. They couldn't own land, so they moneylend. It was deemed as Christians, it was illegal, it was awful, it was immoral to take money that you didn't really earn by charging interest. Well, obviously these business folk, they're Christian, Catholics, but they want and need money. So they have no problem getting loans from the Jews that are the moneylenders. That's where the Jewish people were ultimately selected and working in those urban areas. And even today, where do we find our largest Jewish populations in our country? New York, East Coast. That's right. New York City, Wall Street. Okay?
Hey, Mr. Klein.
Yes.
On the notes there, I see that there's a term cities up a couple. Did we talk about that?
Cities. Oh, thank you for the question. You're right. This increased population, just to let you know, thank you. Good question. The cities, just to give you an idea, the average city is 2,000. Okay? 2,000 would be like Stevensville, that size. Okay? Frenchtown. The average size city is 2,000. Pretty small. But look at the largest. London we're going to talk about. And Paris. Paris has about 30,000 people in this time period of the Middle Ages after this. 1150, about 1200 AD. Paris has 30,000. 30,000 is a big city at that time, right? When you're talking about 42 million on the planet. Okay? We just see it, once again, it documents that increase in population. Churches are expanding. Why? Because they're getting money. People are forced to give money. We see cathedrals being built. What's the number one cathedral that we see built in this time period? I'll give you a hint. It is in fire. Anybody know what that is? Oh, all of you at least remember that because it happened just last spring. Notre Dame was one of these main cathedrals that was built. We see churches in the countrysides emerge. We see these structures in support of the church and the expansion of the church. Church needs land to build churches. The manor, the estates, the kingdoms are more than happy to give that land to the church. Okay? We have people, the city folk living in the cities. We see pilgrims emerge. A pilgrim is an individual that goes on a pilgrimage, right? These folks are taking pilgrimages to the fairs. And when I'm talking about fairs, I'm not talking about the cool kids in August, hanging out at the Western Montana Fair with their hat cap, half backwards and their earrings and their tats and their pants pulled down, their butt crack, looking for girls to prey on. I'm not talking about those kind of fairs. I'm talking about fairs as in, like we have state fairs here early on, that it's in the fall when you bring in your produce, where people bring in the wares that they made all year, and they come and they celebrate the harvest at these fairs. And the pilgrims come from the countryside to trade and purchase and barter with the foodstuffs that they don't have and the items they don't have. The craftsmen are making things, the glass blowers are making things that they want, bowls, silverware, that type of thing. And so we see these fairs as a huge social gathering. They probably couldn't do it today with the social distancing, but at the time, these were very popular and people waited all year to bring and sell their wares to these fairs. The pilgrims are going on the pilgrimage. Have you ever listened to a group? Now I'm going back a little bit. Colby might know this. A group called Simon and Garfunkel. Now I know you're thinking, that's not a real group. Well, you can Google it. It is. They're Simon and Garfunkel. They're from out east. And they had a song that everybody heard of. It's called Bridge Over Troubled Waters. Okay, and you maybe have heard of that. I'm not going to sing it. I'll let the music people sing it. I don't want to ruin a good song. But they had another song called, anybody? Yeah, I didn't think anybody would know. It's a question. Our videographer, does any guess? No, stumped. Colby, you think you know it? Are you going to Scarborough Fair? That's the fair they're talking about. It's an old rhyme that people would sing, talking about during this time period, going to the fairs. Okay, what about the craft people we talked about? They were specialty workers, specialized workers, artisans that we know about. And these artisans created guilds. A guild is an association that works in the same occupation. We would call a guild, instead of a guild, we call them unions today. People are in like the carpenters union, the plumbers union, the electrical union. Those are people that are grouped together in a guild, an association, and they work in the same occupation. We still have that today. Some of your parents might be involved in a union, a guild. The teachers union, nurses union. There's many, many occupations that are involved. They started in the Middle Ages, in this period with the bourgeoisie, and they call them guilds. What type of guilds? You'd have the blacksmith guild, the cobbler guild, the glassmaker guild, and bakers were big ones, okay? And I'll use the baker guild as an example here. How does one get to be a member of a guild? You have to start off at the bottom, and if once you reach the top, you are called a master, okay? You're the ultimate here. Once you're a master, even today, a master electrician, a master carpenter. Well, if you want to be a master baker, how do you become one? You start as an apprentice early on, late teens, and you will work under the master, generally even living with him, for 3 to 12 years. You will learn the trade inside and out. It's basically a quality control. So anyone that goes and buys from a guild will know that the quality is assured, okay? To be an apprentice, we see that even today, an electrical apprentice, a plumbing apprentice. We see that. 3 to 12 years, you pay. You're basically the little lackey for the master, and the master then passes his trade knowledge on to you. After that time period of being an apprentice, you're then a journeyman. You are then able to work on your own or more independently, but you are still not a master until the time which you, the journeyman then, so apprentice, journeyman, until you have to create what? A masterpiece. You then, as a baker, would create the ultimate breads. They would then, the masters would gauge the quality of your masterpiece, and at that time, if it's deemed thumbs up, you would then be called the master. And you then would be able to take on and support an apprentice journeyman program. And it's a way to keep the quality when people come into the towns, okay, for the fairs. This is a way to ensure that quality control, okay? We're starting to see a shift and change from rural to urban, slowly but surely, and it's a result of increased food and the rise in population. What goes up comes down, certainly. We're going to see that. Okay? That is it for today. Any questions, let me know. Have a great day. Know you're missed and loved. Bye, everybody.